Welcome to the weekly Woodcast with Dennis and Michael Woodworth, and we have a special guest in the studio today that I've known, well, since she's been a very young child. And to say that her life has changed recently is a huge understatement. And
a few years. Recently. Okay.
How long have you lived on the planet, Megan?
On the
How old
round,
are you now?
the round Earth planet.
Yeah.
Because the Earth is round, not flat.
Right.
I will say 44 years.
Yes, so 44 years. So, recently I would say in the last few years,
all right, I'll give that
compared to the other years. Megan Walker, school teacher here locally in the Bridgewater area, has grown up in this area, and certainly we've got a lot to talk about today.
We do.
A lot to talk about. Let's just talk about briefly. Your dad was in the studio earlier today. It's funny, I had both Walkers in the studio the same day. He told me about that, which is really cool. And you both picked that day, which kind of...
Like a psychic.
Yeah, no kidding. So anyway, my topic with you is obviously much different than it is for your father's, but
Wait,
there's
my
some
dad's not gay?
similarities.
Oh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
At least your mother hasn't said anything to me about it. So essentially... Let's just get into a little bit of the history. So you grew up in Bridgewater, which is a small community in Nova Scotia, Canada, because there's going to be people all over the globe who's going to listen to the
Bridgewater,
podcast.
Maine.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
Bridgewater, Maine.
Bridgewater,
We're
Nova
not
Scotia,
American.
Canada, on the south shore of Nova Scotia. And you grew up a pretty, regular life. You had mom and dad. You had an older brother or younger brother, David Jr. You went to Bridgewater Elementary, Bridgewater Junior Senior High School.
12, yeah.
You were a really good athlete. I remember you were a very good student, very heavily involved in the school morale, school spirit.
Yes.
You were
Still am.
And popular, just an outgoing individual that cared about a lot of people. That's what I see.
I think so.
I know
think it
so.
might depend
I
who you
witnessed
ask.
it. I'm
I
slightly
think so.
older than you, but not by much. As we get through life, we get into our 40s and 50s, we all blend together now. We're only a year apart now.
Right. Yeah, we're all the same age.
So, educationally, you went for your degrees in university?
I've got a few different degrees before I became a teacher. I went to what was UCCB.
Yes.
And did a kind of like a recreation, they called it a BACS program, community studies. I think more because I was nervous to go to university. I got into Acadia, but I decided to go to Cape Breton because I had family there. And I had friends. We used to go there all the time, Christmas, March break, Thanksgiving.
Your dad said that this morning.
Mom and Dad both were from there. So that's where we spent most of our free time. So I had two cousins my own age, and so anytime we would go there, I would hang out with them. So I ended up making a lot of friends, some who are still very good friends to this day. So I saw going there, I think, as almost an out. I hate to say that. I loved my time in Cape Breton, but I used my first year to do nothing but drink and party. I'm not going to lie. I failed 2 classes and,
happens a lot.
Wasted a lot of time and money. My parents, helped me get there, so it was their money. I don't want to say it was my money. But I also made friends that were in my wedding party and that I've made lifelong friends for. So I see, there's reasons for every choice we make. And I think the reason maybe wasn't the education part for me, but I made friendships that are still close friendships today. So I think when I look back, that's the reason I was supposed to be there.
Sometimes it's actually, Michael and I talked about this conversation a little earlier today about, being in a shadow sometimes and expectations. And both of your parents are teachers, or were teachers.
Yeah.
And you growing up into the school environment where your parents taught. So there's almost like a standard that the Megan Walker individual had to kind of hold herself in. And sometimes
you couldn't skip class.
Absolutely.
If I skipped a class, the teacher could just, say to my dad in the staff room, "Oh, Megan's not here today."
Exactly.
Well, I drove her. Right.
Yeah.
So, you had to be careful what you said, how you acted, because you're, representing your parents who are teachers. And
There's
I
an
get that
expectation.
now, like as a teacher with Walker, what I expect from him maybe isn't the same that parents who aren't teachers would expect.
So you go to university in your first year, and it's, it could be expected that you kind of became your own butterfly for the first
Well,
time, right?
I mean, I
that's-
think when we get into more detail, I mean, there were reasons. I mean, I drank 6 days a week.
Wow.
I gained the Frosh 40, not the Frosh
Wow.
15. Yeah. So, I mean, that I think was a start of a very dark time for me for a long time. And I think looking back now, it's easy to understand why I was doing it and what was happening. But at the
Right.
time,
You didn't know.
you just think you're in university. I didn't really party in high school a lot. I wasn't one to go out and get drunk and party a lot because I was playing so many different sports. A lot of the weekends were filled with other things.
You're traveling all the time.
Right? So it's not that I was saying, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. You guys are bad people. I was just busy doing other things, or my friends and I would do other things, and we weren't necessarily going to parties every weekend. So I think when I talked to a lot of friends, for them, they experimented and drank a lot in high school.
Right.
And by the time they got to university, they kind of knew what they needed to do. Where for me,
That was the beginning.
I think I drank twice in high school underage. And I went to university, and all of a sudden they're giving you free liquor and, Frosh Week and, people we can get you a fake ID and you can do this and that. And you have a lot of freedom. You don't have to really answer to anybody. You choose to go to class or not. And I think
absolutely,
it's a lot of freedom at that age. And if you don't have, and I'm not faulting my parents in any way, but when you don't have those discussions with your kids around these things are going to happen. Like, you got to watch out. People could put, something in your drink. You're going to get offered liquor. You're going to have classes. And if you don't go, you're going to fail. And this is how much we're spending to get you there. And I think for them, probably because I was such a good student and kind of, what some would say maybe a goody two-shoes. But because I had never really gotten in trouble, I think they just probably assumed she'll be fine.
You wouldn't get in trouble there.
She'll be fine. And, I made lots of bad choices, but I think
It's the only way you learn.
It all happens for a reason. I do believe that everything we decide, there's a reason it happens. I'm not saying it's,
But Megan, it's the only way you learn.
Right.
If
I did
you make
what I
zero
did.
mistakes in life, you're not experiencing anything.
Yeah.
Right? To have life experiences mean you have a choice, one path or another.
Yeah.
And sometimes neither one's wrong. They're just both experiences.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was... So I went there and then decided I wanted to work for the Pittsburgh Penguins as an athletic therapist. So I applied and got into Sheridan College to do sports injury management, which I loved, but still probably partying and drinking more than I needed to. Still not really, I think, still very lost and I think angry and looking for something that at the time I didn't realize what I was looking for. So I loved what I was doing, but I don't think I gave it everything I should have. But, I graduated. I came home, and I think I realized after I had graduated that the chances of me working for the Pittsburgh Penguins were slim to none.
Right.
But also, we had someone our third year come in who worked for an NBA team. I can't even remember now, but he talked about how often he worked. And he worked like 360 days a year because it's not like you're just going in, fixing the athletes, taping them up, stretching them. You're doing all the other things too. And so I also started thinking, well, I want a family. I think I want to eventually live in Nova Scotia. What am I going to give up here? Like, I want to work for an NHL team. That's not going to just happen. You're going to have, it's like you play in the NHL. You don't just jump in there. You have to make it through and get there. And you'd have to do the same. And I just started thinking, like, what am I actually willing to do and give up? And how big a dream is this? Or is this just, it would be cool to say I work for the Pittsburgh Penguins because I love the Pittsburgh Penguins. Is it really what I want to do? So I ended up coming back and working here for a little bit. And I didn't really enjoy it. It was more a lot of workers' comp and a lot of non-athletes, and nothing wrong with that. Like, there's people who do that for a living and love it.
It wasn't something that you wanted to do.
It's not the avenue, I guess, I was looking for. So I kind of stopped, and around that time, one of my friends from Cape Breton had messaged and said, we should go to Korea.
I remember that.
And, you know, most people who know me, I'm a very much
Adventurous soul.
well, I'm a very dive in, ask questions later.
Yeah.
Which can be good, but it can also be bad. So it was kind of we should go to Korea, and I went, okay. Like there was no, well, where in Korea? What, you know, we should go teach English. Okay, let's go. So 5 weeks later, we were gone. Which, you know, as a parent now
That's
would be
quick.
very, right? Like when I go home and say to my parents, I'm moving to Korea. They're like, what are you talking about?
What?
And 5 weeks later, we were gone.
Oh, David, she's going again.
So we went there. I was there for about 2 years. Loved it. I love everything about Korea. I've got, you know, my name in Korean, and part of my trip there, I have not a bad thing to say. I mean, we were robbed. Our house was broken into. I, you know, made a lot of bad choices there too. I can say all these things and people will say, how can you say you love Korea when like you're telling these stories that are kind of crazy? And I'm like, because, you know, that happened, but it doesn't stop how I feel about the whole experience, right? Like you can have something bad happen to you, but you have to make the decision if that's going to define everything. So am I going to let that one moment or those two moments of things
Affect
that
all the
happen,
good moments.
forget all the amazing things? And it can, and I think that's what happens to some people is that terrible things happen all the time. And I'm not comparing like what happened to me to anybody else, but you know, sometimes bad things happen and people choose to then just hold on to that.
Well, cocoon.
And you try to make things better or you try, and they just can't forget that. And sometimes it's easier to deal with than other times. But yeah, I lived there for 2 years. I came home. I had taught English. We were there during the World Cup, which was awesome because we got to see some games and the intensity of a field that size. And then I came home and I had been adamant that I would never become a teacher. My mom was a teacher.
Right.
Dad was a teacher. Not today, Satan. It was not going to happen, right? I was not following in their footsteps. It was the furthest thing, you know, which most kids do. They want to rebel against their parents. If your parents said, wear this, you're going to say, no, I'm going to wear the complete opposite, right? Live here. No, I'm going to live here.
Por supuesto.
So I had been adamant that no, because people had said, you'd be a good teacher. You should teach. And I'm like, no. And I came home from Korea and I had been working. I went and worked at New Bodies as a personal trainer for a little bit. And I mean, it was fine, but I was driving to Tantallon, didn't really like the drive, and just realized that I was actually missing my students and missing that, and realized, okay, I think I need to.
Maybe I need to.
I think I need to teach. Crap.
They were right.
So I ended up going to the University of Maine. I looked at the fastest possible program to get me.
We went there in 1985
we went
to play
University
baseball.
of Maine Presque Isle, not in Fort Kent. So,
Okay.
you know, there was a Walmart that was open 24 hours. There was one. So, I mean, and I drove home every weekend, you know, stopped at duty free, created a little liquor cabinet on my way back and forth, you know.
Meg.
But, I ended up doing my student teaching locally and had Kim Mayo, who was one of my student teachers, who was phenomenal and did an amazing job of kind of guiding me and showing me the ropes, which was amazing. And I lucked out my first year. I got a 30% job at Bridgewater where I had worked with, and I got to go to school with my mom that year. I think it was her last year before she retired, or maybe two. Worked at Center for a year, 100% job there, and then ended up getting a permanent contract back at Bridgewater, where I did reading recovery and some primary phys ed and resource, and then ended up doing grade 6, and then stayed in grade 6 for, I think, maybe 12 years, until we ended up moving to the junior high.
Right.
And then last year, I decided I needed a change. I felt like I loved teaching grade 6, and I loved my 2 colleagues, and it was one of the reasons I didn't want to move. But I also started thinking I need to change. I think when you keep doing the same thing for too long, you can kind of become complacent and
hard to grow too.
Right. Like I want to keep learning. I need to do something
Right.
else. You know, I may want to try to get into administration at some point. I had taken my aspiring leadership program so that I can become a principal. And I thought I need to start expanding past
Right.
elementary and past grade 6 if it's something I may or may not want to do, which I don't know yet. So I ended up moving to junior high, and I love it. And I'd heard, I had a lot of people say to me, you should be teaching junior high. Just my sarcasm, how I am.
Your personality.
I'm more suited for junior high. And I kept saying, no, I could never teach junior high kids. Oh, my God.
Do you coach sports in school?
I do.
Yeah, that just fits for you, right?
So
junior high seems to be a better.
I was almost like with the teacher. I was adamant that I was not
going to do that.
Going to do junior high. I'm like, I cannot. Junior high kids? No, I can't. Like,
they're easy for me.
But I moved in to junior high, and I'll admit it. I hate admitting when I'm wrong, but I was wrong, and everyone who told me I should teach junior high was right. Yeah. Because it is. I'm sarcastic. I need to be able to be sarcastic with my kids. I'm very honest with them. Every week I go on rants about that they need an education so they're not living in a van by the river, but they're all too young to know who Mick Foley is.
Absolutely.
And they're like, what?
Oh, who's
what?
That? The most sarcastic teacher I can remember growing, and you may have had the same one, as Glenn Matthews.
I did have
Glenn. Glenn was
Glenn
so
Matthews
sarcastic.
Was my principal
at
in center for 1 year.
Glenn was a classic sarcastic teacher. Loved him to death. He was my grade 7 teacher, and remember him with great fond memories. So sarcasm's great at a junior high level.
It can, you have.
He wouldn't have fit for me in grade 3. Like
right.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't have fit for me.
You have to be able to. Like I understand. Like we had talked about earlier. I don't have an indoor voice, so kids. But kids also know, like I can joke and I can be sarcastic, but I have the tone and the voice that when I raise my voice, they know that, okay.
Glenn was the same way.
We're kind of done. But I like it. It's a good age. It is a good age. We joke, the drama and, all of that at that age. But I couldn't go back to grade 6 now.
You shape kids in every year. I remember every one of my teachers, they shape me in some form, but I think in junior high, you evolve a lot. Like there's a lot of evolution in junior high. There's so many pressures and new things. And for me, it was girls, and relationships that way. It was always simple with guys.
Grade 7's interesting because I got to see the kids that I had in grade 6. I then had them last year in grade 7.
Yeah.
So you don't realize it's only been 2 months from
big difference
when school ended in June to when it starts, and you're kind of like,
big difference.
How are you like some of the kids that were really loud became a little more quiet, or
more mature,
ones that had a harder time focusing all of a sudden could focus. And
I agree.
So it's really interesting to see by the time they hit 9, because then by 9 they know, okay, I got to get my ass in gear, because once senior high hits, my marks, I've got to really
there's an emphasis.
Start looking at that.
There's an emphasis on results.
Yeah.
Because there's a different chapter in
your
your life.
So it's interesting to watch the progression, because I teach 7 and 8. So it's always interesting to see, I find 8, in grade 8 a lot, there's a lot of, I don't need this.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've been here already a year. I don't really need this.
Right.
School's not that important. You don't get me. You don't understand.
Yeah, of course. We've never been there.
Everything's,
you don't understand.
Boys or girls, or the popularity,
or
and especially now the social aspect, because phones are so prevalent and social media is so insane.
I would not want to go to school right now.
Oh my God.
I would not. I loved when we went to school.
I said I wouldn't.
I would not
if
want to
they
go to
would have
school
had
now.
cell phones when I was in university, I would not have gotten a job, because they would have Googled my name and been like, hard pass.
100%. 100%.
Right? We all do stupid shit, but the difference is the only way people knew if we did stupid shit is if they took their camera and got it developed, and 2 weeks later saw if the picture turned out. There was no
and
instant post it for everyone to see.
And then they judge you right away too, right? There's always that judgment
and
right away.
Things are out of context.
Yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
you could easily take a
Totally
photo.
Agree.
I could take a picture of you on Halloween if you decide to do Flock of Seagulls, out of context with your hair like that, and make some
snide
remark about what you're wearing. And if no one knows you were dressed like that for Halloween, all of a sudden people are trolls. It's insane how much people troll each other online.
So you've learned a lot through teaching others. That's the cool thing about it, is that you're learning as much as those kids are learning. You're learning too. You never stop learning.
It's funny. We had this talk today with one of the TAs, and I said, I apologized to my grade 8s maybe 2 weeks ago now, because I had gotten home and there was something that was bugging me that was going on in class. And not that I'm going to get into it, but I just said to them, I think I need to apologize for something that I've let happen, that now that I've had time to think about it, I said, I need to be better. And so I said, I think what I need you guys to understand too is that I need you to see that I'm an adult, but we all make bad choices.
Absolutely.
And I need to apologize if,
it affected you.
It affected you because, I shouldn't have let it, get to whatever. And, they all listened and they were all respectful. And I think it's hard, especially for, not just for teachers, I think it's hard for anyone. I mean, my kids have a possible time apologizing. People get very uncomfortable when they have to admit they've done something wrong.
Amen.
It's easier to try to talk your way out of it, which is what my 8-year-old likes to do. Did you do this? Well, I did it because they did this or he. Right. So it's easier if you can justify why you did it. And so it's hard for anyone to admit that they've done something wrong because most people with empathy feel bad and they know what they did was wrong.
Exactly.
And if they admit it, they have to admit that maybe they weren't the best version of themselves. And it's hard for people to do that. And it's hard for educators too, because kids, I think kids are easily influenced. And I think that, not every kid likes every teacher. And I know I'm not everyone's favorite teacher. And I know I'm some people's least favorite teacher, but I'm okay with that as long as they see you learn something.
Well, they're all
so
different.
If they all, if there's this kid who hates me as a teacher, but in that moment they saw me apologize and were like, you know what, they're right. Yeah. Then I'm okay with that because we can't, no one's ever always right. And I think when people try to go around with that mentality that I do no wrong,
they're wrong a lot of the time.
I can,
or they're too stubborn.
I can make TikTok videos saying be better, be kind.
Exactly.
But if I then turn around, I'm going to douche all the time.
Exactly.
Right? Which a lot of people do.
Got to practice what you preach. So so I go backwards a little bit here because you were now into your current teaching profession, but you started a relationship with Luke Comstock, who was a musician.
Yes.
Still is a musician.
Yep.
And had 2 children.
Yes.
So when did you get married?
Oh man.
You know the year. Come on.
No, 2008.
Okay, so you had 2 children.
Yes.
Okay, how old are they now? One's 8, obviously.
One just turned 8, and one is about 11 and a half.
Okay, so you have a good relationship. You've had a good relationship with your spouse.
Yep.
You get along well. Obviously, in relationships, you go through ups and downs in relationships because you have, real life.
Yeah.
There's real life shit that happens,
it's
right?
True. And once you put kids into it also.
And anybody that sits there and says that every day's perfect is full of shit. They are. It's just so. In your life, I mean, I remember, you played softball in the community. You were always heavily involved in stuff. Like you're always doing things. At what point in your life did you have, and I'll use it, the feeling that you had a different sexual preference?
Not until the year I came out.
Okay, so how long ago was
that? About 2 years.
Right.
But I would, to back that up, it's not that I knew I had a different sexual preference, but I knew, looking back now, and I'm able to look at everything, I was always sad. I always felt lonely.
Right.
I always felt like I didn't fit in, even though I would say, and I'm not saying this like bragging, but I was very popular.
You were.
I was the captain of many of the sports teams I was on. I was
very athletic.
President of this and that.
You won, I think, the high school award for Athlete of the Year. I remember that 2 years in a row.
So I was out there, and this is why it's important for when we talk about even mental health, that just because someone
looks really good,
right? I would go home and I would sit in my room and I would feel like I wasn't liked. And I couldn't understand why, because I knew, I knew that
people liked
I was good. Like I was happy with sports, and I didn't feel like an outcast that way. But at the time, I just know I always felt like I was not part of the group. Even though I was always part of the group of my friends, I always felt like I was on the outside, but I didn't know why I felt that way.
Okay.
I would honestly, looking back, like when I was in university, I would have labeled myself as bisexual for sure. I was very much, I just want to be in love. I just want that feeling. I don't care if it's with a girl or a guy, but I always went to the guys. And I think part of that is how you're raised. Back in the day, my parents weren't sitting there saying, love is love. You can love, girls can love girls, boys can love boys.
That was
right?
not explained.
And no fault to them.
Well, it was different then.
It was a different time, and that's how, it's just how it was. It wasn't spoke about at church. Everything was man and woman, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend.
We are taught that.
Right?
We were taught
that. That's what you were taught.
100%.
So when I went to university, I would have labeled myself as bisexual, even though I had never been with a woman, because in my mind, I didn't care if it was a woman or a man. I just wanted to be in love and be happy.
Okay.
But I always just went this way because I did. I don't really have any
other experience.
Right, it's just how it is.
And it wasn't something that we grew up with a lot.
It's funny because looking back, I didn't really have a lot of boyfriends. And any time I was trying
to remember that.
I didn't really have any boyfriends in high school. Kissed a few boys and stuff, but it never.
No learning experiences through relationships.
Yeah, like I found when I would date a boy, I would find a reason to break up with him very quickly.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it just never, for whatever reason. Then when I went to university, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of making out with a lot of guys, looking for quote unquote love. I'm like, if I kiss enough of them, one of them I'm going to fall in love with. That was kind of my mentality, that I just wanted to be happy. And to me, I had thought to be happy, I had to find a boy who would fall in love with me. And, like the soap opera, this big dramatic.
Not real. Well,
and then when I moved home from Korea, I got set up with Luke. And he was nice. We got along. He was cute. He made me laugh. And
he's a musician.
I was, I was at that age where I'm like, you know what? Why, mess up a good thing? We get along.
Right.
And at the time, I don't think I had ever been in love, so I didn't even really know what those feelings were. So I was like, I guess this is it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have those fireworks that you see on TV, but I also don't think that every single relationship has that.
It doesn't.
I think an actual intense burning love for someone is not something everyone has. I think it's very rare. But I still think you can be in love. But I think there are different.
I said there's different levels of love.
Yes.
So you can love an animal.
Yeah.
You can love a relative. You can love your mom and dad. You can love friends, associates. You can love a partner. So they're all different levels. I think the most important thing is the relationship aspect. The reading that I've done over the last 5 years of my life specifically was I've been exploring relationship. What does it mean? Why is it so important? How does it fulfill you? Because really that's what the journey we're on is fulfillment in relationships. Yeah. And
but I think there's a passion part to it.
Yeah, you have to have passion, of
and
course.
That's, I think, like, I
we're
agree
sexual
with
beings.
Your tears.
We're sexual beings.
But I do think that there is a love level above love of a partner.
Yeah.
Because I think there's almost a tiered love for partners. I know
agree.
that there are people that are in relationships that are deeply in love, but there's no sexual relationship. Right. And I know that there are people that have a highly sexual relationship, but they're not really overly happy. And I think there's a level that's very rare, which I will tell you before I met Lindsay, I didn't believe in soulmates. I thought it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo that was ridiculous, that was just, but now meeting her and going through what we went through and what I feel every single day, I would 100% say I do believe there are soulmates, but I do not believe everyone finds their soulmate. I believe people can get married and not be soulmates. And I think the people who find their actual soulmate,
it's rare.
It's very rare.
It's rare.
But I do think when you know it, it's a whole other
deep
level.
It's deep.
It's so intense that I never honestly blows my mind every time I just think
the moment. I want to go back and revisit your family first, but I would I do want to I want to ask this question. In those situations when you meet someone like that, there's an energy that you know immediately. Did you have that?
Yes.
So that's the thing. It's almost like a
Yeah.
magnetic connection with someone,
And it's
you
hard.
feel the
It's
vibration right away.
It's hard because Luke has the opportunity, as does his family, to hear this, and I don't want to hurt anyone,
Well,
and I don't.
You had a good relationship with Luke,
right? We did,
right? I mean, it's not that
we
guys
were together for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not that I was like unhappy every day. Like we had a good relationship. But it's the same as before I was with him. There was always a piece of me that
Right.
just felt like something wasn't right and I couldn't figure out what
agree.
it was. So I was not understanding, am I just not happy because we're busy with kids? Because people say, oh, the first 5 years, if you
Yeah.
can make it through the first 5. And then
You'd be
someone
all
else
right.
said, well, it's once the kids turn 7, then you're in the home. So I kept wondering, well, is it just because of the kids? Am I just stressed all the time? And, in hindsight now, I mean, I was angry at Luke all the time. I picked at him about everything in hindsight. Like, I'm sure he thought I was the biggest bitch all the time. I'm sure he was like, is this what the rest of my life is? Because I felt like I was angry at him. And in hindsight, looking back, I think I was looking for a way to justify if something happened. I could
Those are
say,
the reasons why.
these are the reasons why. Remember
Yeah.
all those times?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't understand why. I hadn't met Lindsay. I hadn't been with another woman. I didn't know why I was having these feelings. I didn't make that connection. But looking back, I was always angry at him. Why is the laundry out? Did you do this? Well, why didn't you put the dishes away? There was always something,
But
and
you
it was like
probably
nagging.
didn't even know yourself.
No. And so
Megan,
at
you probably
looking
didn't even know
back,
yourself.
I can look at it now and explain and
Right.
and say to him, and I have apologized to him and said, like, I'm sorry how I nagged a lot. I didn't feel like I was nagging a lot. I felt like everything he did was just wrong, which it wasn't. It was that I was trying to figure out why I was unhappy. So I'm like, it must be because he doesn't do the laundry as much as I want, or
That's
he
probably
didn't,
not the
right?
reason.
And it's not the reason, but I didn't know yet.
So I think the biggest thing that I want to ask you is not the biggest thing, but one of the things I want to ask you or even comment on is sometimes it's hard to be selfish, especially when you have relationships and children, because we're taught to be selfless in those situations. So we kind of take away from ourselves sometimes and our own mission in life, because you were young,
Yeah.
right? So you get involved with this relationship. You think this is the way.
I was, oh yeah.
That's
I
young.
was, 30, 27,
right? So
28, yeah.
like Michael's 28. He's still
Yeah.
young. So you make these decisions like, this is the way life's supposed to be. I'm supposed to have this relationship. I'm supposed to have children.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have a career. I'm supposed to,
In this order.
go to
by this
sports and all that
age,
kind of stuff with my
yeah.
kids. And I'm supposed to give of myself to my children. But what about me?
Yeah.
Like we kind of
It was
lose that
tough.
sometimes, right?
It was tough when I actually, the awakening of realizing, oh shit,
It's got to be.
I'm gay.
Yeah. I don't even know that. I think it's sometimes it's tough that you're going in a different direction and it can affect others.
I didn't know
Other than
any of
yourself.
that until I actually
Yeah.
made that connection. And then it was like,
It's just you. It's okay
it's like
sometimes.
I say, oh my God, I'm gay. It was like the first domino. And then it was like,
Yeah, 100%.
oh, and you start,
Right.
oh my God, oh my
Yeah.
God. yes.
Now, I will say this.
yes.
And this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be watched, because this is a global topic.
Mhm.
And being, the letters, the LGBTQ, right?
Yes.
Any of
Yeah.
those designations today are more socially accepted now
Mhm.
than when we were kids.
Oh,
like
100%.
way more socially
Oh,
accepted.
100%. We have kids all the time who just, at young ages, are like, I'm a lesbian. It's like, okay.
Now, sometimes when you're a young
Right.
kid, you don't know. I mean, sometimes you think you're something when you're young. I think a level of maturity and true personal understanding of yourself, there's exploration. There's
Yeah,
certainly...
I was going to say, I wouldn't say that they think they know. I think that
They have
in
a
that
feeling.
moment,
Yeah.
they're feeling,
Yeah.
right now, I think I would be attracted to women. Okay, then explore
Right.
that. I mean, if you're, 10, I'm not saying go out and start dating.
Yeah,
know,
Lindsay
boy
O'Quinn.
or girl, I wouldn't care. I would be like, my 10-year-old, you're not dating.
Lindsay's a past player of mine that played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay's had relationships with women and with men. And I remember the
Not
moment...
my Lindsay.
No.
Let's just clarify that. Not mine, Lindsay.
Lindsay O'Quinn.
I see Lindsay listening to this going, what is he talking
Lindsay
about?
O'Quinn. And we had lunch one day, and she said, I had a relationship with a woman. I'm like, well, that's so. Like today, I think it's just so much more socially understood. Yes. Not so much the word accepted or tolerated. The word was tolerated in the beginning. Then it's understood. I just think we understand more now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we just do.
Well, it's education. Like when I came out and told my boys, they didn't ask me what does it mean to be gay. They already knew. They knew. Because I would talk about the Pride Parade, or I would always say, I mean, my kids 100%. Used to go, I know, Mom, love is love. Like, stop, we get it. We get it. Yeah.
And I mean, I have a daughter named Danielle, and she's not my biological daughter. Mm-hmm. And I know her father. And I tried to explain to Danielle when she was younger, because I actually took over the role as a leader in the family when she was 2 years old. Mm-hmm. I had a talk with her father about it. And I told her, I said, Danielle, you're fortunate because you're loved by many people. Yeah. Some people don't have any fathers in their lives. Like, it's just a single mom and a deadbeat dad that is never there. Yeah. You have more than one. So you're lucky. You're fortunate. And embrace that, right? Yeah. So I've always embraced that just because a family dynamic is not the cookie cutter way of generationally how we were taught when we were younger and our parents were younger. I think we're going down a path of better understanding of who we are as human beings.
Hopefully.
No, I believe it.
I think there's still a lot of negative stuff happening out there in the world, and there's still a lot of bigotry and homophobia.
But we have that even from
racism.
Well, look at exactly the Black Lives Matter issues. Yeah. We still have ignorance in the world, and I don't think we'll never lose that. Mm-hmm. I just think that one person at a time, if we gain more understanding and knowledge, there'll be less of it, less ignorance. I tell my students when I have this talk with them every year, because I'm open about my sexuality, I talk about my partner all the time, but I always say every generation has to be better than the last. And I said, if each generation does a little more to educate their children and teach them to be kind, eventually there would be no hatred. Because eventually, if every generation is a little bit better, eventually it would be gone. Now, I know that's not realistic, but trying to educate them that, my parents' generation, obviously, compared to my generation, was very different. And then my children's generation will be a little more accepting, fewer labels, and hopefully then their kids will be, that's all you can hope for is that, I believe you can't teach what you don't know. If you're a person on the planet and you don't know empathy, you don't know understanding, how do you teach it? So you pass that along to the generations in your family. Yeah. Like there's a lot of people that hold all that in and never tell anybody. Like you celebrated coming out, which a lot of people do because you hold it in for so long. Some people never celebrate that. They hold it in forever because in their family, there's not an acceptance for it. And some people, they suffer a lot for it. Yeah, I came out and I celebrated when I came out, but, did I come out the right way? Probably not. It's hard. How did you? Well, when I met Lindsay and I knew instantly, but I didn't know. When did you meet her? Well, she moved in as a principal of our school, and I was the teacher. Right. And so I said the very first time I met her, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I remember saying to one of my close friends next to me, I want to be her friend, but I don't know why. I just wanted to be around her, but I didn't know why I wanted to be around her. So every time I would see her, my stomach would drop, and I'd get really uncomfortable, and I'd get really hot, and I would get flustered, and I wouldn't understand. I didn't understand those feelings because, honestly, I'd never had them before. Like butterflies in your stomach, I'd never had that. So I didn't understand what I was feeling at, 40 or 41, whatever, and I didn't know why it was happening, and I remember... God, it was December. So this had been happening since I'd met her in September. Every time I saw her, I was having these feelings, but I didn't understand what I was feeling. And we actually developed a friendship. We had stuff in common. Our kids were the same age. So, we would chat, we would talk about life and, things we thought about. So I valued and respected her as a person. Right. And I wanted to be her friend. We were friends.
And then in December, I was talking on the phone to one of my really good friends, and I was saying, I was explaining these feelings. I'm like, I don't understand. It's really weird. And she said on the phone, sweetie, I think you might be in love with her. And I'm like, what? She goes, I think you're gay. And I went, what? No. And it was silent for a minute. And I went, shit, I'm gay. And in that, it was that moment, because I knew something was wrong with what I was feeling. It wasn't like how I feel about any of my other female friends when I see them. So I had these feelings, and I think probably in the back of my head, I knew, but I hadn't actually said it until that moment.
You didn't want to admit it. And
in that moment, I bawled, and she, cried with me on the phone, and she was like, "This is good." I lost I didn't eat for 4 days.
Wow.
I was a mess. I would drink a lot in the evenings to try to decide, because I then became, what am I doing? What am I going to do?
How to explain it to everybody?
But am I going to not say anything and just stay married with my kids?
She didn't even know.
No. Oh my God, no. No, not at all. So I was then, once I realized, oh my God, I'm in love with her and I'm gay, but I'm married with kids.
That's complicated, yeah.
What the hell am I going to do? It became almost every night
a burden to
alone
your soul.
at my house, crying, weighing, what am I going to do? Am I maybe I should just not say anything, stay married, for the kids. But then, is that fair to Luke? Is it fair to me? Is it fair to the kids? Right? Am I going to tell her and leave Luke and hope for the best? Am I going to leave Luke and not tell her and just... there was a million different scenarios. Should I do this? Should I do this?
Door
what
number
if I
one,
do this?
door number two, door number
right?
three.
And the big thing was always the boys. Maybe I should just, I don't want to, I don't want them to hate me. I don't want them to then, if I leave Luke and live in another home, I never want to be in your house. You broke up mommy and daddy. So there was a lot of every night was a different scenario. And for months, this is what I did every night. Is I played out in my head, what would happen if I do this? 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 You can't predict that. So I would play each scenario thinking, and usually every scenario ended very horrifically because you're just negative about it, right? It's this self-doubt of the only one that at the time, I'm like, the only thing that I could do would be to stay married and keep the kids happy and I'll just keep it inside. But then it becomes, how long? I was like, I'm 40 or 41. I've got at least another 40 years left, I'm hoping. That's a long time to keep that in.
That would burn your soul.
And it's also not fair.
Burn your soul.
To Luke or to the boys.
No way.
Because what was starting to happen.
That. You would carry that, and it'd be a grudge to yourself.
Well, and so what happened.
And you weigh that grudge
when
out.
I realized, things also then switched with Luke. Because the minute I realized I'm gay, I then didn't want to make it seem, I felt then, am I leading him on if I then
you didn't want to pretend.
Become affectionate with him?
You didn't want to pretend.
I didn't want to pretend.
Yeah.
So Luke then, I think, also started to realize something's up.
Yeah.
Whether he knew, that's a conversation we never really had. Whether he knew or I don't know, but I spent then the next, January to June with that in my head, not telling anyone other than my one friend on the phone. And then I ended up telling one of my best friends locally one night that I need you to know this, but you can't, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need you to know. So, two of my closest friends knew. And then it became every day I had to go to work, but now going to work, knowing what those feelings were, looking at her and realizing, oh my God, I'm in love with my boss and I'm married to a man and I don't know what I'm going to do.
How do I figure my way through this maze?
And what do I do, and, my colleagues knew something was up because, you can't be the same person you were every day now knowing this information. So they knew something was going on, but they didn't know, I think they suspected that Luke and I were going through a rough patch. So I was just emotionally burdened by... maybe they're fighting. Maybe, you don't know.
It's a lot of weight to carry. A lot of weight to carry.
So, so when I came out, I probably, for me, I had been holding it on for that long, which to me felt like forever. I mean, that was 6 months, 5 months. So for me, I felt like it had been forever.
Yeah.
Every night going back and forth for 5, 6 months. To me, it felt like forever. So when I ended up finally coming out, for me, it was like this release. I was so happy, but it all then happened so fast because I just wanted everything done.
Well,
which in hindsight,
exactly.
you know, that's a shock and a slap in the face for Luke, who is just like, I think I want a divorce. I couldn't even really tell him I was gay because I was like, I don't want to fight. I don't want it to get. So, you know, he said, well, is it, you know, he started asking questions.
Right, of course.
And it was like, well, I don't know, maybe, you know, I didn't deal with it probably the right way. Because it was like, I just want it done. I've now said it, so now I want it over.
What is the right way?
Right.
You don't know what the right way is. I mean, it's just your way.
But it happened so fast, even for my parents, right? Having to tell them and then being like, okay, just letting you know, I'm gay.
Yeah.
I've left Luke. I'm moving out in 2 months. We're seeing a mediator. It's happening. You know, all of that happens within 24 hours. And then
within 24 hours for them.
Right.
But for 6 months for you.
So for me, it was kind of like,
yeah, a relief.
You know, and it was my birthday weekend, and you know, and it coincided. I ended up, school was over, July started, and I just kind of told Luke, told my parents, and then the next day I was off to Ottawa to visit my cousin, and then we were road tripping to Comic-Con to meet Jason Momoa, who I'm a huge obsessed with Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
So we went to Quebec for my birthday. To Montreal. It was.
There's a few women on the planet that are obsessed with Jason Momoa.
I am, but you know.
Hell, I'm obsessed with Jason Momoa. That man is. He's one.
I know.
I'm not gay myself, but that man is just a fucking specimen.
He's awesome, and you know, like I remember my brother said, you know, when I told my brother I was gay, and one of his questions was like, "But you're like obsessed with Aquaman, and you're now saying you're gay," and I said. Yeah. Aquaman's amazing. Jason Momoa is beautiful.
Yes.
I don't want to have sex with Jason Momoa, but have you ever just watched him in videos? He's so cool. To sit down and party and drink with that man, I just all around like who he is. And I'm not going to say I don't think he's hot because he is. And I'm trying to explain to people, you can be gay or lesbian and still think the opposite sex is attractive. It doesn't mean I can be a gay woman and still say Jason Momoa is hot.
I say that all the time. Like, if I know attractive men, I know who they are. It doesn't mean that I love them or I want to sleep with them. If you can't identify who is attractive or not, then you.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. When you know truly about yourself and who you are, you're very comfortable talking about things.
Right. And the difference is I can look back now when I was in high school or university and remember looking at girls, like famous women, and being like, I might want to kill. Like, no, like
she was attractive.
I like Pink. You know, like
Pink's a tough, attractive woman.
You know,
she's
but
tough,
that's kind of if you look at my partner, right? There would be similarities, not like, but in terms of, you know, it's not this big, voluptuous, you know, long hair. Like, there's
Pink,
a certain
Pink has an incredibly deep personality.
Yes,
she brings, and she has a lot of characteristics. I always say she's like an onion.
Yeah,
she's like an onion. There's a lot of layers to Pink, right? There's a lot of layers.
You've got that surface that people are just automatically attracted to how people look physically, which is great. I'm not going to sit here and lie that
inner beauty is way more important.
Yeah, but people, I get that people are attracted to outer beauty. I'm not going to sit here and be like,
but
no, outer beauty means nothing. I get
is more
that.
Important,
but. Outer beauty only lasts for so long, unless you're going to get a lot of plastic surgery.
I will say, though, that is the initial thing.
But it is.
It's an initializer, and then the rest of the stuff that triggers you makes you stay.
If your inside is nasty, it doesn't matter how your outside is.
I should say, Michael, you have that rating system. Remember, we talk about the rating system.
There's a scale.
We won't go into it. We're not going to go into the scale in the conversation, but the bottom line is he has a scale.
What's the scale?
I'm breaking the scale open, Dennis. I don't care.
Well, quickly,
if you want me to
have so much time for
I'm
the
just
podcast,
saying the scale is.
We got time.
Now
I'm talking.
I'm watching.
It's not my scale. I think it's from a comedian, but it's just there's a guy who mentioned he's like there's a level of how much of an asshole you can be with how attractive you are.
Oh, I've seen that on TikTok where they made a linear, like a graph where they like overlap. This is like the point.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
it does make sense.
It does.
Speaking of TikTok,
because we let people go with things.
Yeah.
When
like,
and we shouldn't.
Lindsay is beautiful. She's gorgeous. I love her, but her personality and her energy, that was
That's
the
what attracted
first.
you.
Yeah, I mean, the energy she gives off and the presence when she walks into a room, and she calms me, right? Like I told you earlier, I'm the diver in right away without asking any questions.
How different are you two?
Black and white.
Wow, that's what I figured.
It's like I'm a shopper, she's nature.
Right.
I would want a cat, she would want a dog. Yeah. Right? I want socializing and game nights, and she wants
How does that
no
work?
people.
How does that work out? But how does that work out?
It works well. I mean, I've gone camping. Anyone who knows me would be like, what? Like in a tent too, not just like trailers, in an actual tent. Right?
Wow.
My friends, like when I post pictures on Facebook of like tent camping, they're like, oh my God, she has completely transformed you.
Well, you make sacrifices for.
I got her into a mall.
Yeah.
She hates shopping, but I'm like, you need some stuff. Let's go. Like we'll make it work. So, I mean, you compromise. She knows that I like social gatherings and to go out.
Right.
She'll come sometimes, and other times it's like, I'm going to stay home. And I also, I know she loves the outdoors and canoeing and camping and, wanted to live on a lake. We live on a lake, which I love. I'm not going to sit here and pretend she forced me to. But,
right.
I think, and that's what I talk about, like the intensity of our relationship and how deep in love we are and how much respect we have for each other. You compromise, and it's not like, I know I've compromised, but it doesn't feel like
it's unconditional,
right? Because as long as she's doing it with me, I don't really care what we're doing.
Right.
So I might not love camping, but I don't mind camping if she's with me because we're sitting in front of the fire having a drink and chatting.
Here's a
I'm not a big
question.
bug person, but
legitimate
I'll
question.
do it.
Was Lindsay gay already?
Oh, yes. Lindsay was married as well.
She was married.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is, she was married to
a woman.
A woman.
Yes.
Okay, so she was already married to a woman.
And they had a boy who is my stepson now,
So
who's the same age.
They adopted a boy.
No, she gave birth. They did in vitro. Yeah.
Phenomenal. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's
good.
really cool. Questions about representation. Sometimes I think we talk about the weight that you carried knowing that you were gay and how to explain it to other people. When you become gay in a community like ours, which is a small rural community, there's not a large segment of people. There are obviously some, right? But do you feel the responsibility of the flag? I mean, like, I see it all the time in regards to celebrating the day.
I wear a lot of pride shit all the time.
Yes, but do you feel a responsibility for that?
No.
No, you want to wear it, but it's not a responsibility.
And I always say, I came out at, 42, so I was at the age, I had taught health and I had taught grade 6, and we go through all that. That's part of our curriculum in Nova Scotia, which is great. But I was at the point where I didn't really give a rat's ass what anyone was going to say. When I knew,
good. That's good.
I knew.
That's good.
And so I had kind of developed if you don't like it, then obviously maybe you weren't meant to be in my life. If you don't accept me, then obviously I picked the wrong
or they weren't
person.
educated in that area. There are people that are ignorant that just don't understand. I
will not
that.
use that as an excuse. I don't think that's okay to use as an excuse.
Well, I use an analogy. I don't know what podcast it was, but
I don't think you can say they're ignorant, so you're not accepting.
Well, let's talk.
At this point of time, 2020, it's not the whole thing.
If
We're
it was
like,
my
oh my God, it's
grandparents,
2020. But
if it was my grandparents who are no longer with me, but if it was my grandparents, I could say, okay. It's a different. Exactly. But even my parents have seen enough, with TV and movies.
Yeah.
So I don't think anyone from my parents, I don't think it's okay to say there's an ignorance.
There still is an ignorance, though.
There is an ignorance.
It exists.
I think there's an ignorance.
But do we accept the ignorance?
Because there are parents who are teaching ignorance.
Yeah,
so there's a difference. Yeah. It is an educated ignorance because they're being taught to be ignorant.
That's very
Not
true.
that, if some kid said something inappropriate and they didn't know what that word meant. It's like when you teach kids about the N-word.
Yeah.
They see it in videos and movies and music videos.
Doesn't mean you have
and they
to
sit there
it.
calling each other it. And then I'm like, do you know what that means? And they're like, no. And when you explain to them why it was used and, with slavery and, you see them kind of pull back like, well, that
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Right.
That to me is a different ignorance because they're seeing it, and so they're thinking it's okay. But then when you teach them, it stops. If they continued to use it, it's a different ignorance.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So, I mean, I was very lucky. I mean, I told my closest, and I made sure that everyone that was close to me, as much as I could, if they lived within an hour vicinity, I told them face to face. I did not call anyone. I did not email anyone. Anyone who lived further, like my cousins in Cape Breton, friends in Cape Breton, or, you know, my brother in California. I can't.
No,
you
it's
know.
a long trip.
So that was more of a text message back
large
and
expenses
forth.
to be able to explain things face to face.
Yeah. But I mean, I put it in context when I told my friends, and these would have been the friends that I went to school with from primary to 12. Right. That I'm very lucky that, you know, there's still like a core group of 6 of us that every summer we all end up back here. One night we get together, we have drinks, we catch up once a year if we're lucky. This year it didn't happen because of Corona. But, you know, I told them. Some of them were shocked, but I mean, one or two of them said, we're not surprised.
I mean, I didn't think you were, but not 1 second did I go, like, not 1 second.
I mean, I had a few who did that, but there were a lot more not surprised. And
I
so
was
I'm
concerned
like,
about a couple things. The only thing I was concerned about really was how do the kids feel? Like, how are they good, right? Because the stability of your children is paramount to all parents. And the other one is what kind of, you know, situation did Luke go through mentally just to try to help himself understand that it wasn't his fault? Like, it just wasn't his fault. Yeah. It's hard to sometimes.
It's hard, I think, in the beginning because I pushed so quickly because I just want, like I said, I wanted it just done. Yeah. So I think for him it was hard because, you know, he said, well, maybe we should talk to a counselor or maybe we should do this. And I was like, you know, no, I don't need to. I'm done. But you know, asking about how he felt, that would be a him question. I'm not going to get into, you know, that's not fair for me to say what I think he felt. I can say from my side, but that's a one-sided observation, and I don't think that's fair for me to say. But, you know, I'm sure.
It's hard in that situation.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was not, you know, I know he was angry. I know in the beginning things were not good between us. Fair enough, like, obviously.
Well, that's like an atom bomb.
But, you know, I said to him, I remember, I don't know when I said it, but I said, I do honestly believe that one day you're going to thank me for this happening. Maybe not the way it happened, but I said, because
I totally agree.
You're going to meet someone, I said, I honestly think one day, maybe you won't thank me, but I feel like you will thank me for finding someone who maybe will do what Lindsay did for me, where you're like, oh, this is what a marriage is supposed to be. Oh, this is what happiness is. Right. Because I do believe that, you know, I was meant to be with Luke because I was meant to have those 2 boys. And I wouldn't, if I had to go back in time and do it all over again, knowing everything I know now, even though that might sound harsh and mean towards Luke because that's being selfish, but I believe those boys were meant to be here.
Well,
so it all happened for a reason.
I try to explain to the kids I coach, your life is a book. And every year is like a chapter. Yeah. And some of the chapters are just humdrum chapters. Same story. Then all of a sudden, the good part of the book is when there's that, you know, the adversity and controversy and all those kind of things. And then you always want the book to end well. And it really is up to you. Yeah. It really is. And if you expect someone else to finish your book, you're in trouble. Right?
True.
So the reality is for me is that it's not being disrespectful to any spouse. I'm not just going to use Luke as an example. It's any spouse that feels the type of emotions I'm sure any spouse would feel in a situation like that. I think time heals those wounds and that understanding heals those wounds. And then once you forgive and say, you know, I forgive, you know, that this has happened, then I think things magnetically happen for yourself as well. If you hold that burden on forever, then I don't believe things come your way then. There's a book that I was talking about the other night. It's called Celestine Prophecy that talks about magnetic energy. And when you walk into that principal's office, you felt that magnetic energy. You felt it.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid it. If you walk away from it, then
I always want to
you're
go back.
you're kidding yourself. You're totally kidding yourself. And that's just that's the reality of the human genetics. And if you don't understand that and you walk away from it, you're losing opportunities in your life to learn.
Things are
explore.
good. I mean, Luke and I are very good now. He is with someone. They've had a little baby girl.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
My son, I mean, they love their baby
Awesome.
sister.
That's
my
awesome.
youngest had always wanted a baby
That's
sister.
awesome.
So, I think he's happy. I get along with her very well. Like, we text regularly,
That's
like
great.
reminder, he's volleyball, or they'll say, what do we do here?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a situation, and I'm only speaking from my side. I think, like you said, they have 2 homes that
love
have
them.
loving parents,
Unconditional.
and 2. I mean, we joke now that they've got 3 moms and 1 dad.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
I think a big thing is, especially as a teacher, because I often see families that don't get along, right? So that child that you see who is stuck between parents who are fighting, and that was one of my big worries, is that I didn't want the boys to see Luke and I fighting or arguing, which is inevitable sometimes, but I wanted them to see. And the boys have said, how they say they can see how happy I am, but they also see that Luke is happy as well. And that's what I wanted them to see, that sometimes in the beginning things are, sad or make you upset because
That's part of the book.
Right? Mommy and daddy are getting
part of the
divorced,
book.
and oh crap, mommy's also gay. So they had to deal with 2 things at one time and try to deal with it.
But if you lose,
But they see it now. I mean, it's been 2 years.
sometimes you feel,
and
Megan,
they
you lose
see-
things, but to lose some things, you gain things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to let go of certain things for the possibility to gain things.
Mm-hmm.
Some people try to hold on to those things and
Yeah.
force it when you can't force it, and that creates a lot of pain, resentment that carries throughout your whole family. Then you're dragging your parents in, you're dragging your brother in, you're dragging. All of a sudden, there's a lot of just pain and anger and resentment.
And I mean,
when
you're
you can
right.
just let it go.
It's a
right?
small
Just let
town.
It go.
So, I mean, for me, I knew there was going to be gossip, and I knew I was going to be
Welcome
the
to small
topic.
town anywhere.
I was going to be the topic of discussion for a while, good or bad. It
Doesn't
was,
matter.
and I didn't, quite honestly, I didn't hear a lot of it, but that's how gossip works. Usually
Behind
when
your
you're
back.
talking about, did you hear? Oh my God, she did this.
Yeah.
Poor Luke.
You get the old, hi, how are you? And then
then,
oh my God, she's the one that.
Uh-huh. So, I mean, I say there's always, every choice you make has a consequence, good or bad. So, when you decide to make that choice, you have to live with whatever consequences come with that choice that you make. And it could be good consequences, but it could be bad. And you have to be ready to accept those. I tell that to my students all the time. You made the choice. You've got to be prepared for that consequence.
I'm not a professional, but I know one thing. It's your life. And
That's what John Bon Jovi said.
And you only live it. You get to live it. You're the only one that has all the memories in your mind and your soul. One thing I give you a lot of credit for today is that you've opened up and been honest about, not just about this relationship, but about who you were earlier in your life. I mean, to say that you drank like you drank in school, you've accepted the responsibility for the things that you do, and that
it was awful.
That is something that a lot of people will make a lot of excuses for and not admit it.
I always I joke about it now because I'm old enough, but I always, with my friends, I would always say, I'm really lucky that I was not dead or pregnant at 20-something, because...
What a different path.
Right? It would have been a whole... And looking back now, I know why I was doing it, because I was looking for something that I didn't realize what I was looking for. And I've said to Lindsay, I think that everything happened the way it was supposed to happen for a reason, because I think that Lindsay was supposed to be my only one.
Well, you're
my
way
first
more
and my first and
mature
only.
now as a human being.
I think if I would have met her in my early 20s, I don't know if we would have still been together, right? I don't know if we would have even ended up in a relationship if I would have met her that young.
Right.
And it also would have meant neither of us would have had our children.
Right.
So, I think that it happened the way it was supposed to happen. But I also like to say, I think when I was younger, I always had this vision, even though it was like towards a boy, I had this vision of, I just wanted one true love. I only wanted like one person as like my first and my only. And
Right.
I didn't, and then as that obviously never happened, and I kind of let go of that. And then when I ended up being with Lindsay, it was kind of like all my firsts. I got to have all these firsts.
Yeah.
And they're my firsts and my onlys. So I don't have, she is my first for everything with this. And it's kind of like I got to have what I had been looking for and have my first with her and have my first this and my first, so many experiences that we got to experience together, that were firsts for both of us. Like, oh, we've never gone here, or I've never, taken someone camping here, or I've never done this. And it's, and I don't mean sexually. I'm not, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you
I
mean.
hear myself and I'm like, people might think I'm talking about something totally different, and I'm not. I just mean every experience. It's something that also makes me happy is that I get to have all these new experiences, and they're all firsts for me, and they're all first with this amazing woman who is like my soulmate, and I get to look back now on all of those. Remember when we did this, and remember when we went here, and remember this, and they get to be firsts.
The little bit of discomfort has created a lot of growth. It's no different than physically training in a gymnasium, which I talked about with Candace Ernst the other day.
Yeah, she looks phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Candace, if you're listening to this, you look fabulous.
She will listen. She told me she would. Is that she had to go through discomfort.
Yeah.
To get to her destination.
I would, if I could have her discipline. I see her out like
she's tough
with
as
the
a rock.
running. I mean, I'm trying to get her. I tell her I want her to teach me pickleball. I just got to find some time that I can do it, because I would love to try some pickleball. But she'd kick my ass. I know, but
initially she would.
Till I got, I'm a little competitive. Once I got to hang.
Oh no, you're not competitive, are you? That's the discomfort part though, because you would be in an area where you're not comfortable.
Yeah.
But you would get better quickly because you'd be so committed, right?
I don't know. I'm old now, though. I'm out of shape.
But I think no, you would get in shape. Trust me. I know you would, mentally and physically. It's when you look at your children, that little bit of discomfort has created an incredible family dynamics.
It has
for
they're
them.
Pretty amazing, I will say. I mean, when you look at stories of some kids who have to deal with their parents separating or having a gay mom or dad. I mean, it's interesting because there was never any major, they were both upset, where are the toys going? Am I going to have to switch schools? There were, the basic questions for kids.
Of course.
My oldest, I could tell, went through, I think, some anger. He doesn't talk about it, but he would, he was a little different towards me. But that has gone. My youngest is very much, well, why do you feel that way? Why? So you like girls. Okay. So does, he always asks.
Well, kids have no filters.
And he would ask,
right.
So you said you love daddy and now you don't love daddy. So does that mean someday you could choose not to love us? Because he,
valid question.
Right? Everything. He's my, like, whatever you say, question. He starts thinking deep. Whereas my older is more surface emotional.
When you say you don't love daddy, you can still love Luke.
Well, and I explained to the boys that I said, I love daddy differently.
Right,
like
100%.
I said, I love daddy as a daddy. He's an amazing daddy for you guys. I said, but, mommy was always sad because mommy realized that she loved girls. So, I'm never going to, and I'm trying to explain to him, child love is different. Like, I'm your parent, I'm your mom. I'm never going to stop loving you. It doesn't matter.
Loving children is unconditional.
Right? And
loving,
so explaining that
partners,
to him,
there's conditions.
Because in the beginning, he was trying to connect everything. Well, she says she loves me, but she said she loved dad, and now she doesn't. So could that happen to me? Like, in the beginning, those were... But he at least verbalized and asked. It wasn't all internal, sitting in his room, me wondering what's happening. He was my youngest is always like, he'll just say it. He doesn't. I guess he gets that from me, maybe.
Tal Gar is a writer that he's originally from India, and he married someone in his life that he loved, but their relationship wouldn't work because he was built a certain way and she was built differently. She wanted certain things in her life that just didn't match his life. It didn't mean they didn't love each other. It just meant they couldn't go on the same path. And I think sometimes in life, identifying that is not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because then people get to fulfill their purpose in life. And you're living out something that is your purpose.
Yes.
And for someone like Luke, who has understood it initially, maybe not have, but now does, and has gone on in his journey still, in a new relationship, having a baby girl that you wouldn't have had together probably.
Yep.
It's allowed him, his journey's changed, but now you guys are together still raising your children.
Yep.
I just don't think people understand that you have to go through some discomfort to get to your...
It's holding on. It's like in the beginning when I was
just have
talking about
to.
apologizing, where people also have a hard time letting go, especially if they're the ones that have been hurt. People have a hard time forgiving as well.
Oh.
Forgiveness is a very hard thing, and it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I forgive. I get it.
Now you're an 80s girl.
Sometimes you hold on to that anger and resentment, and you
absolutely.
want vengeance.
You're an 80s
Right?
girl.
But-
You graduated in 94, but you're an 80s girl because there's a song, you would have been very young, you would have been in elementary school, but there's a song by Straight Lines, and the song's called Letting Go. And the story is the hardest part of love is letting go. Mm-hmm. And sometimes in a relationship, in that situation, you just have to.
Yeah.
And it's going to be painful. Like when you went through all those trials and tribulations, you were trying to find the most simplistic way to do it that you wouldn't hurt anybody.
Can I just do this and have it? Like, can someone
boom,
just
next
like
day,
make it happen next
right?
day? Yeah.
But look at it now.
Yeah.
What do you got to say to young men and women, or even teenagers that are questioning, why do I feel different, or why do I feel this way? What advice from your perspective would you give somebody?
Oh God.
That's a question I wanted to ask you.
It's a hard one. I mean, I do a few videos on TikTok around,
I watch you.
trying to. You better be
I
following
do.
me. I need the follows.
Don't worry.
Hey, are you following me?
Sorry, hold on. I'm not, but I'm one
What?
of those TikTokers
I'm
that
sorry.
literally.
What? Did you say no? You're not following
I
me?
just For You page it all day.
Look, I don't care if you For You page it. I'm aiming
I might
at
be
200.
following you.
I bet you're not. 200,000 is my goal.
Okay.
Every
Listen,
person counts.
anyone-
Come on, Megan
anyone-
Walker 3. At Megan
Anyone
Walker 3.
watching the YouTube video or listening on Spotify
Hit me with
or
the
on
name.
Facebook,
Hit me with the name.
Megan Walker 3.
yeah,
Are we talking TikTok?
Go to TikTok and
Are we going to talk about TikTok?
I love it.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a big
Are
TikTok.
you on TikTok?
Well, I'm not, because I'm not a big fan of China.
He's fallen into that.
I'm not.
It's been purchased by a North American company. If that makes you happy.
Pull it up right now and prove that to me, so that China has nothing to do with TikTok anymore.
Well, I wouldn't say they have nothing to do with it, but
it's
But I mean, your information's
I
out
think
there.
it's-
It's
I
getting
think
sold by so
actually-
many
I
companies.
think it's pretty cool. I mean, TikTok's a pretty cool app.
look, I have had some pretty cool stuff happen
Yeah.
fairly quickly. I mean, it blew up for me like overnight. It was literally overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole reason I'm reading now.
Microsoft on Sunday confirmed that it has held talks with Chinese technology company ByteDance to acquire its trendy social app TikTok in the U.S. Microsoft said in a statement that it will keep working with the U.S. government on a deal.
That was August.
It intended
Yeah.
to
It's
conclude
been-
yeah,
talks by
that's
September
August.
15.
But no, I mean, the whole reason I got TikTok was because all my grade 7s were talking about it, and I was like, okay, I need to stay relevant. I'm going to just download it to see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So then I downloaded it, and I made one video for fun because I just wanted to see what it was like. And a few of my kids saw it, so then they started following me. So, I mean, it is an addiction. I'm not going to sit here and say it isn't. You start seeing people following you, and you're like, oh,
That's
okay,
a
well, I got to make
dopamine
another
effect.
one.
They call it a dopamine
right?
effect.
So I made a video with one of my teacher friends who's about 6'5", and it was the table one where he like locks his legs and we lean back, and that got 80,000 views. And I was like, what? And so then kids, it would start to show up on their For You page, and I'd come to school and they're like, Miss Walker, you were on my For You page. And I'm like, yes. And so then I just started making more videos.
You're on top of the world.
Right. And my goal was to
TikTok.
hit 1,000 because when you hit 1,000, you can do lives.
Right.
So I had hit about, I think, 1,100 or whatever. And I had made this video in August. We had been told we weren't allowed to have any furniture with fabric. So it was the video where I was just packing up my room and talking in the background. I made that video and I went to sleep and I woke up, and usually we wake up in the morning, we check our phones. I always check to see if I got any new followers, And I opened it, and at the bottom in red, it said like 6,000 something new followers. And I was like, in my eyes, I leaned over and I whacked Lindsay and I went, "Oh my God, it's happening! It's happening!" And she jumped. I said, "Look." And she saw I was at like 7,000 followers. And she's like, oh my God, it's happening. And I gained, I think, God, was it 1,000 followers an hour?
Megan
It was
Walker
something
was
insane.
trending.
1,000 followers.
I can tell you your numbers right now are 188.4 thousand followers, and you have 3.9 million likes.
So you want 200,000 is what you're saying?
I would like to
we'll
hit
help
200.
you out with that. Well, we'll make
And
it
there will
happen.
be a
I would
next
like
goal
more,
after that, though.
but
Trust me.
there will, right?
It's contagious.
It is.
Any YouTuber that I've seen that has gotten
Yeah.
that first subscriber button went, we're on to the million now.
It was really cool because I got, so I've done a few lives where I've gotten like the gifts. So the gifts give you money. I always joke. I'm like, I haven't made that much, like $3. Can't cash out yet. But I had a company reach out and ask if I could do a news article for the States because they thought I was American, because 65% of the people who follow me are American.
Right.
I said I'm Canadian, and they said, okay, well, that won't work. I had a company reach out and ask if I would promote their product, and it was a product I had already decided to start using because I'd seen a few other teachers on TikTok promoting it.
Right.
So I had already planned to use it anyway. So they said, we need you to make a video, and we need you to make 2 videos, and we'll give you a certain amount of money. And I emailed them back, and I said, I want double that because I'm hilarious. And I guarantee my video will be hilarious. And they went, okay. Like there was no, well, let me see the video. They went, sure, because for them, it's right. So
it's quick. With most of the companies, their affiliate stuff is something.
So I made 3 30-second to a minute videos.
Right.
And got, I'm not going to say it's a huge amount of cash, but I got about $200.
Yeah.
It paid for wood,
exactly,
right? It paid for a cord of wood for me.
Exactly.
So really, I've had that podcast I did with
I saw
Halsey
that.
and Coxie Slade.
What? So I always believe that, like what we're doing, use the platform for something positive.
Yeah.
And really, what are you using TikTok as the vehicle for? What's your message? What do you want to tell people? Why you? Yes, they're attractive because you're fun, right? You're a fun person, and I love watching them.
People to look at those videos and be like, oh my God, like cringy, like laugh, but in a, like,
of course.
I'm trying to be funny, but kind of make fun of
There's a message
education right now, but not in a malicious way. Like
message behind the humor.
Sometimes some people will be like, well, that was kind of mean. Like I made a video the other day and it was like a kid saying, oh, hi, Miss Walker, do you remember me from 5 years ago? And it's Celine Dion's like, I've banished every man. It was complete, like that's never actually happened.
Right.
But, you hear sound bites and something pops into my head,
course,
like that would be funny. Yeah. Or I see a video and I'm like, something like that, but do this instead.
Right.
So I get ideas and I do them. And some people, because I do have a lot of young kids who follow me, right? It's the whole, and I find it, and I hate to say this, but a lot of it is the Americanized, like it's Americans who are like, well, that's not nice. Well, that's mean. You're being mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
And I'm like, first, and then I usually always comment back because I don't want them to think it's okay, to just be, and I say, it was a joke. And I have remembered every one of my students, I think, that I have ever taught. I can still today, I see them working at McDonald's or going to university. So
Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, all the big comedians talk about it's okay to be humorous to humans. Mm-hmm. It's just a joke. We're so politically correct today. It's the things that are changing in society are blowing my mind away. And I don't want to get into that today because I know you've got parent teacher you got to go to. But I mean, the reality is when you change football names from the NFL and we're so politically correct in society today. There's no humor to it anymore. Everyone takes everything so personal. It affects them, and they want to just jump on the bandwagon.
But I would say, but some of that I would like, renaming the Indians. I get that. I get things that are offensive. It's how is that any different than if they had a team named the Ends?
Yeah.
Right?
It's not really. It's just a different race.
There are certain things that I do think have to be changed, like certain streets or certain statues that are erected over people that are obviously have been, not done some great things, and we've got schools named after them or statues erected in their honor. I get things like that, but I do also agree
I'll
kind of
I'll give you an example.
like Dave Chappelle says.
We grew up, and the Dixie Chicks changed their name.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't purposely name their band the Dixie Chicks to be ignorant in society. It was just the name of their band. We have to use some common sense, I think, in society where we can't say everything has to be politically correct.
Gone out the window.
The Dixie Chicks was a bad thing. What happened there? I'm oblivious.
They changed it to the Chicks. Just
what's
the Chicks.
wrong with Dixie?
I don't know.
Well, Dixie is part of the southern United States, right? Like the same as the General Lee. The General
like the
Lee.
Confederate
But
flag
Dixie,
and
is it a
the-
place?
Well, Dixie is the southern part of the United States, and it was part of Confederation. So the Confederation flag.
I didn't know why they changed.
Yeah,
the name
they
of the
changed
Honestly,
it.
that doesn't
It's
even
the same
seem
as
like a
it's the
thing.
same as the Dukes of Hazzard that aired in the 1970s had
the
a
flag.
car called the General Lee,
Yeah.
and General Lee is a leadership figure in the southern United States that fought against the North, against Abraham Lincoln.
But I would say
but
that's
I mean, they didn't name the
different.
General Lee.
I know, but I
because
would
of that
say
reason.
that's different because those are TV shows that were made in that era that can't be changed. But
The
if
Washington
it was
Redskins.
if it was-
what does that? I mean,
It's calling them a redskin.
yeah,
Instead of an Indian.
yeah, but
if,
I mean,
if it was the Washington
it's-
Indians.
it's not. Let's just name this team this so we can be ignorant. It had to be if there's a
but the people who named that
the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah.
in the beginning
yeah maybe
could have been
but maybe
Right.
It's hard to judge every person
but
painted with the
also-
same brush.
No, but and I think
And we're going down a path we don't.
But they're not. Well, I think when they change the Redskins name, they're not judging anybody that's in the organization now. They're looking at the first
they're
person that
just
made
saying
that
right
name.
now
We're gonna
with
do-
what we know, how we've been educated now, like you said about the LGBTQ.
yeah.
What we know now is different than what we knew. So
Valid point.
I remember in school saying Indians all the time.
Yeah.
The Indians.
But it doesn't
But
even make
now-
sense. They're not from India.
Right. It doesn't. It's not culturally appropriate.
Native Americans
right.
now.
Yeah.
So now that we've been educated,
Right.
we see that it's not okay to call them the Indians or the Redskins because we've become educated.
Well,
we
let's-
weren't educated when we
We're
named
going
them.
to do a show called Political Correctness.
really?
Well, I'm a big fan. You may come
You
in
need
for
to
that.
do like a group
We
one.
are. We've
Oh
got
yeah,
multiple mics.
we've had a couple people.
Yeah.
I can do a setup where there's 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bill Maher's. I'm a big fan of Bill Maher.
Yeah.
And always have been. And he had a show called Political Incorrectness, right? And it's I wanted to dig on it because it's something in society that we're going in that direction. How far do we go? And that's even we talked about the other day with some of our guests about like our artificial intelligence. How far do you go? Like where do
Scary,
these things go, and how far do we tolerate it before it incredibly affects society?
You know what you need to do? Here's an idea.
Megan Walker's giving me an idea.
Look, I'm very creative. I come
no,
up with
we
ideas.
know that. We know that.
You put a fishbowl
Yeah.
in the middle of your table with your guests.
Yeah. They put
With
in
a bunch of statements. One statement, not a question, one statement.
right.
You pull it out, you read the statement, and people have to discuss their thoughts on it,
Cool.
whether it's true
I like
or
that. We'll do that.
right?
Hey, the best idea we
Right,
ever
like-
had in the Goodwill tour was given by somebody else, so we'll
That's
definitely
true.
take
Well,
that and do
Take
it.
it out,
Well-
and you'd open it, and you'd be like, socks should never be worn with sandals.
Okay.
Pineapple
So
does not belong
So-
on pizza.
And then just discuss. It doesn't always have to be a deep topic. It could be something like socks and sandals,
So
which is
everybody
an
knows-
adamant no. Lindsay, you heard me on that one, right?
Exactly.
No.
So
I am
what,
a big
so,
fan.
So everyone knows.
no!
So everyone knows we're going to have that episode come up on the podcast, and Megan's going to be here for that,
Call it
and we're going to throw
Fishbowl
this together.
Fridays.
Fishbowl Friday.
Release it
we got
on a
lumberjack
Friday.
Fridays too. So
Like
Fishbowl
the
Friday.
fish at Boston Pizza?
Yeah, we got to be careful.
I
Don't
am
get
too.
sued by Boston Pizza. Yeah, no, we'll do it. We're going to do it, Meg. So
right.
we've gone from, I really want to thank you for coming in because
Thank you for having me.
It's something
I
I
like
think
doing
is.
stuff. I mean, anyone who knows me, I like to talk.
Yeah.
I always said I can't be there all day. I have parent teacher, and then I start talking. I'm like, keep going.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
fine.
think it's imperative that what I told Candace the other day is break through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
In physical exercise, you got to break through the wall. And when you do, you see the growth of yourself physically. You can see the most growth when you break through the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I think also intellectually and also emotionally and socially. When you break through the wall, you learn so much more about yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
Ronald
for sure.
Reagan, when he was president of the United States, they broke down the Berlin Wall. And that wall being broken down created a lot of growth in society there.
Yep.
That's what we need to do in societies is keep breaking down walls, asking questions, pushing,
Educate.
and forcing leadership in the world, whether it's politically, entrepreneurially, socially, whatever the case may be, to be accountable.
I was going to say,
And to
for me, I
build-
would say educate,
Yeah,
hold people accountable.
100%.
I mean, we can't really get into it now, but for me, you know, I have a big issue with what people just post all the time online without being held accountable and think
accountability.
it's okay. And that's why, you know, the video of mine that went viral with the 14 million views, one reason it went viral is because there's a pride flag hanging on my wall in my classroom.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that it went viral because of the furniture, but people started to see that. And there was a lot of comments on either side, like, how are you allowed to teach? You should be fired.
I
You
know.
should burn. But then there were also tons of positive. Like for every
Complimentary
one
comments.
negative comment, there would be like 20 positive ones.
exactly.
But anything that was really bad, I made videos with a screenshot of what they said. And people, I mean, the LGBT community on TikTok is phenomenal.
they're tough.
They like flood the page, you know, why are you homophobic? Why, you know, and sometimes they would reach out and say, can you please, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it. You know, and it's about educating. You can't just blindly, because, you know, this boy was like, I had a bad day. I'm like,
Well,
you called me an effing, you told me to burn my effing
The
lesbian. You know?
LGBTQ community has way tougher skin than someone that sits behind and as what I call a keyboard cowboy. They don't have a thick skin. All they want to do is criticize, and they won't take any criticism themselves. I see that all the time in
But
the
there are
political
also
forum and
people
everywhere
in
else.
the LGBTQ plus community that are like that as
of course.
well.
Yeah, they are.
You know, but I think they've
are.
been through a lot more.
Of course.
Not that I'm saying that's a pass, but you're right. I mean, I think they have to have thicker skin because people think it's okay behind a keyboard or to their face, you know, to say what they say.
How are
And-
things? So you're here now. So
Yeah,
how are things going now?
awesome. You know, busy with school and coaching, but
Volleyball,
love my life.
basketball,
Volleyball. I'm coaching the grade 5-6 boys soccer team.
Awesome.
And then the junior girls volleyball team. And usually I coach the Chilled Bridgewater, the club team.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen this year with COVID because we
Yeah.
can't get in. We can't use the schools, right?
And
so
you're gonna
trying to
start
find gym
pickleball.
time. I'm going to
Candace
me and
Ernst.
Candace. I'm going to convince her to be my partner, and we are going to take Nova
That'd be
Scotia
one
by
tough
storm.
team. I would not want to see that, man.
Knocking
Actually,
balls.
I would want to see it because
Knocking balls
whoever
outta
whoever the poor bastards are on the other side are going to be in big trouble.
All right, Candace, you heard it. You're going to be my partner.
Yeah.
We're winning it. I feel. Can I get money? Can we win money for pickleball?
That's up to Candace. Candace is the pro, right?
That's right. All right.
She's the
I'll tell her we need to go
world-renowned-
pro.
She's the
All
world-renowned
right, Candace, we're going pro.
individual.
Pickleball champs.
Megan Walker, live in studio at the weekly Woodcast with Dennis and Michael Woodworth, and I look forward to Fishbowl Fridays.
Yes.
We'll do a couple of those coming up soon, and we'll do some creative work together to come up with some fun ideas. The queen of TikTok, Megan Walker, with Dennis and Michael Woodworth.
Thank you, guys.